From all over our region, this is Kaleidoscope. For years, capturing the good news, interesting places, and remarkable people doing their best. This is Kaleidoscope, presented by Cameron Video Productions.
Hello, and welcome to Kaleidoscope. I'm Sarah Cameron. Coming up,
I took to it very well. It seemed like something that I understood.
We talk to a shoemaker and learn all about this craft as he shares some of his process with us. Plus, where does that TV or computer go when you're done with it? We meet a recycler that is working hard to keep these things out of landfills and even rescue them. And
we've just got tons of volunteers. It's a really good thing what's going on here.
Talking's a lot of fun, a lot of people you meet.
We're a big fan of kids fishing.
we stock local streams and feed the fish with the Heath Township Sportsman's Club. But first, have you ever had that favorite pair of shoes that you just wear and wear until they completely fall apart? Well, what if your favorite pair of shoes would last you 25 years plus, with just a couple of repairs along the way? Brett Walker is a shoemaker from southwestern PA who was once an apprentice and now is a journeyman cordwainer of the Company of Cordwainers of the City of York, a heritage guild. He apprentices others, along with teaching classes to students about this skilled trade.
Originally, there were two distinct trades. There was a shoemaker, or what we call a cordwainer. It's an old-fashioned term for a shoemaker, or a cobbler, who was the repairer of shoes. And so at one point in history, if you called a shoemaker a cobbler, you're probably looking to start something with them. So people do ask me, how did you ever get into this? And I jokingly say I lost a bet. I was actually working a very good job, but it was one of those jobs where I just kind of slowly going crazy. I never saw the end product of what I did. And I told my wife I need to learn to make something with my hands, and I had no idea what. And I looked into a few options, violin making and blacksmithing. And then I ended up meeting my first shoemaking master, Cliff Paquette. Just took a shoemaking class, similar to the ones that we offer through the school. It was a 10-day long class for me at that time, and at the end of it, he offered me an apprenticeship. And that's how it all began. And then, of course, after that, I ended up going down to Colonial Williamsburg, served the second part of my apprenticeship for a total of 7 years of apprenticeship, under arguably the most knowledgeable historical shoemaker in the world, Al Segudo. That's how it happened. Once I made my first pair of handmade shoes and they fit beautifully and were most comfortable shoes I've ever owned, it was kind of hard to turn back at that point. Let's say, for instance, you get a suit or a table that's not properly made. Well, it might not look the best. But if you get a pair of shoes that doesn't fit right, that can ruin your whole weekend. Right? So there's a lot more at stake. You know, we have the ability to literally, unfortunately, cripple people if we don't do our job right. The golden age of shoemaking is really from about 1660 to about 1820. And after that, there's techniques developed that begin to degrade the quality. They make them faster, but they don't make them better. The quality of the materials was superlative in the 18th century. The craftsmanship, how they were done, the fact that you could either buy a pair of shoes that was ready-made in a variety of sizes, and then you had the opportunity to have something made bespoke, in other words, made to your own measurements. Moving forward into the modern era, there have been shoemakers that have retained that. For instance, Lobb over in London, or some of the other well-known bespoke shoemakers. And they're essentially making shoes pretty much with most of the techniques that would have been used in similar materials that would have been used in the 18th century. The difference is the price. Back then, about a day's pay could get you a pair of shoes. Today, I think Lobb's shoes start out at like 6,000 pounds sterling. So I don't know if you're making 6,000 pounds sterling or not, I'm not, but it's a very big difference. So now it's a luxury item. If you're looking at a pair of bespoke made shoes by somebody other than a well-known maker like Lobb, somebody like myself, you're looking around $2,300, $2,500 for that pair of shoes, depending on the size and the materials we're using. Now, one way of looking at that is if you spend, $2,500 on a pair of shoes and you get 25 years out of it and add in some costs for repairs, so you maybe another $1,000, so $3,500 over 25 years, you're a little over $100 a year is what you spent for those shoes, because they're going to be repairable. I've known of these shoes, and this is extraordinary, but I've known of these shoes being worn for upwards of 50 years and still looking really good after they've gone through a refurbishing. how long does it take to make a pair of shoes? And that's kind of assuming that one person's making the entire pair of shoes start to finish. And that is a lot of what we do now today. For a simpler pair of shoes, maybe around 30 hours to, if I'm making a pair of high-end riding boots, I may have well over 100 hours of measuring and sewing and fitting to the person. That's the least efficient way to do it. And they knew that thousands of years ago. 2,000 years ago, we know that shoemakers were dividing the labor up. A 5-person shop might be a normal shop, say 250 years ago when this country was beginning. 5-person shop would be expected to put out about 30 pair of shoes a week, because one person's cutting out the parts, another person's sewing the uppers together, another person's making the shoe, and a fourth person is doing the finishing work. And that way can date back to Xenophon, a Greek historian, about 370 BC. He describes that happening in Sparta and Athens. Well, we have a saying that something fits like a glove, right? Well, that's the way a good pair of shoes should fit. How does a glove fit? It's a little tight, a little stiff at first, but slowly that breaks in. And once that breaks in, it's the most comfortable thing on your hands. Same is true with the foot. So they're going to fit you much more naturally. They're also going to allow you to move more naturally. For years, bespoke shoemakers were saying, hey, they're better for your knees, they're better for your hips, better for your lower back.
You're going from 3-dimensional to 2-dimensional.
I jokingly tell people I'm in the Obi-Wan Kenobi phase in my career, where I'm training the young Jedis, and I still use the lightsaber now and again. That's a way of saying that I'm an intentional posture of trying to train people for the future, so that what I've learned and been passed on to me is then passed on to others. So I have both students. Students are people that want to make a pair of shoes for themselves for their own satisfaction. And I have apprentices, people that want to go through the full 7-year apprenticeship that I went through, which is rigorous. I have 3 apprentices, and currently I have probably about 6 or 7 active students. And I've probably taught about 80 people how to make a pair of shoes over the past, say 20 years. Our nonprofit, my particular work, is about passing these skills on, so they don't fade out, they don't go away, you don't have to, all it takes is one generation to forget how to do something, and guess what, it's essentially lost.
Brett, along with his nonprofit, the Fellowship of Arts and Mysteries, is in the process of forming a trade school for grades 7 through 12. It's called Kingsgate. The goal is to keep these trades alive for the next generation. Students will have classical education right along with skilled trades. Students will also gain critical thinking skills and graduate with a trade they can use for a career. Now, after the break, Brett gives us a short demo of some of the steps needed to make a pair of shoes. We'll be right back.
Credit unions are cooperatives. People helping people, that's our way. At Gap Federal Credit Union, we are a full-service financial institution. We understand everyone's financial needs and goals are unique. We offer home and mobile banking, deposit by smartphone or iPad, mortgages and loans, IRAs, CDs, and money market accounts. At Gap, we know that the family who plays together stays together. We look forward to making your family part of our family.
Take off with Cameron Video Productions. We make your product or business get ahead of the pack. We produce several national quality television shows. Cameron Video Productions is truly a one-stop shop with the ability to guide you in the total production process. Live event production and streaming lets you have viewers from around the world. Do you have an appetite for big studio quality at a small studio price? Experience Cameron Video Productions. Visit CameronVideo.com.
When a student comes to St. Francis University, they come with gifts and talents that are unique to them. It's our role to help those students become the person that they are meant to be.
This segment sponsored by Gap Federal Credit Union.
Before the break, we introduced you to Brett Walker, a shoemaker in southwestern PA. Now he shows us some of the steps involved in making that perfectly fitted pair of shoes.
This is a last, L-A-S-T, and it's the form that you build the shoe around. It has the size, and then it has the style, the heel height, the toe shape, those things. When we're making bespoke shoes, we're going to make the last very, very exact to the measurements of the person. This is a piece of broken glass, and this is removing just small portions of it, so I would use this. This last right here is made for a customer, and then what we did is took some cheap leather and wrapped it around and made a very, very cheap mock-up, if you will. That would be tested before we cut into the expensive leathers. I'm going to create what's called an inner sole, the equivalent to the shoe of what your foundation is to your house. Everything's attached to it. It's the most important part. Take this piece of leather, and we're going to tack it to the bottom of the last. Maybe in a busy week of shoemaking, if you're working 5 or 6 days, you might sharpen your legs a couple times, but you're going to strop them. Safer, not only does it cut better and make your job easier, but it's actually safer because you have more control over the knife. All right, so this now is going to be what is going to create the inner sole, and then the next thing would happen is I'm going to soak the leather in water. So this is an inner sole that's much farther along. And you can see what we've done is we've carved the leather all the way around, and we've carved a piece into it called a holdfast. It's what everything's going to get sewn to. And then we go along and we pre-hole it with an awl. But that hole doesn't go all the way through to the inside of the shoe. And that's going to make a shoe that's much more water resistant and watertight. But what I'm going to take is single strands of, this is flax thread, very, very strong material. Using a dull knife, what I want to do is thin out the end of the thread. This is called shoemaker's wax. It smells like smoke, and it's very sticky because it has pine pitch in it. Pine pitch, rosin, and a little bit of beeswax. When we pull our stitches up tight, it's such a sticky material that it's going to keep the stitches tight. And it's also going to form kind of a watertight seal, like a gasket. Every time I do put this twist into it, I'm actually putting a little bit of the wax into the center of the thread. And we're going to take these boar bristles and we're going to weave them onto the end of the thread. And that's going to make a gentle transition in the thread so that there's never a big lump there that you have to try to pull through a hole. And you can actually make the hole undersized and then pull it through, and that way the thread completely fills the hole. I'm going to do a couple stitches of round closing here. I'm going to do what's called a shoemaker's stitch. This is being sewn together at about 12 stitches to the inch, so I've got to do a lot more of that over and over again. I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around that wooden form. And I'm going to use a pair of special pliers called lasting pinchers that are going to help me to pull it tight up onto the form. And I'm going to tack it as I go around. When I have it all tacked on, it's taken on the shape of the last. We use a band of leather that's sewn around the outside called a welt, and that goes around like this. These 3 pieces get sewn together with the thread that we made. So the best shoemakers in the world are using leather shanks. They just take a lot more time to do. And that would go in this part right here. There would be some infill, and this would create essentially a bridge between the heel and the ball of the foot. This is sole leather, and that piece of leather is going to get sewn onto the bottom, which is going to be the sole, and that'll get sewn to this welt all the way around here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take several pieces of this type of leather, and we're going to stack them up. The first couple layers will be sewn together to this piece back here called a rand. And then the layers above that will be to use wooden pegs. The finishing is probably the one area where a machine can do a pretty good job, about equal to what we can do in terms of hand finishing. And that's pretty much what we do. That's how a shoe's made, the traditional manner. That manner of making shoes goes back hundreds of years, and of course, now it's a special item when you find a shoe like that.
With the price of gas, why not vacation close to home? Plan your adventures with a free 94-page PA Great Outdoors Adventure Guide. Get your copy at visitpago.com.
I chose Gap Federal Credit Union because it's conveniently located here where I work at.
Gap Federal Credit Union helped me consolidate a lot of debt.
Gap went way above and beyond to help me with my auto loan. I needed a special van that had a wheelchair lift, and within days I was driving the van.
It was just almost like I had her as a counselor to help make some decisions for me to consolidate debt, and that to me was just way above and beyond.
Gap Federal Credit Union. We look forward to making your family part of our family.
With the price of gas, why not vacation close to home? Plan your adventures with a free 94-page PA Great Outdoors Adventure Guide. Get your copy at visitpago.com. Hairstyles provided by Salon Visions in Westmont.
Technology seems to be updating almost daily. New phones, computers, bigger flat screen TVs. But have you ever wondered what happened to those outdated electronics you dropped off for recycling? In the past, E-Loop near Pittsburgh took us inside their operation to see how this recycling works and how their process keeps Pennsylvania beautiful.
Started in 2008. It was a labor of love for myself and one of my investors that we wanted to find a sustainable way to handle electronic waste. Since 2008, our business has doubled in size each year. We now employ 40 people in 2 locations in the state of Pennsylvania, and we are probably one of the largest recyclers of residential electronics in the state of Pennsylvania. In addition to collecting residential electronics, we also have a large number of corporations, hospitals, school districts, colleges, universities that use us to recycle their electronic equipment as well. The one benefit we bring to the program for those operations is that we not only can recycle their equipment, but if it still has value, we have the opportunity to resell it. So if you look at the hierarchy on the recycling side, you would always want to reuse something before you recycle it in total. And we've been able to find good, suitable markets for tested working equipment, which allows us to charge less to our corporate clients. On average, about 40,000 pounds a day comes into our operations in State College in Pittsburgh, and we try to process somewhere around 40,000 pounds a day of that material. We are into data security. We are trusted by a lot of corporations, and the residents around the state of Pennsylvania can trust us that when they give us their computer equipment, that we're going to destroy their hard drives. A lot of people have read in the news about all the data breaches that are going on with major corporations. These data breaches can happen through internet access, etc. But you would figure when your equipment is end of life, the last thing you want to do is worry about what you left behind on an old hard drive. So we have successful ways of managing data for corporations. The products that we produce are basically production-ready products that can be sent either into a metal refining operation or a plastics processing organization, so we can get the maximum recovery value out of that equipment. Every one of us have cell phones that we've swapped out probably within the last 18 months. And it wasn't because your cell phone was broken, it was because you were ready for the next latest and greatest model. Same thing can be said for televisions, computers, and all different types of gaming devices, etc. If you look at the components of electronic equipment, they contain an awful lot of toxins. So anytime you have welded joints with solder, that lead is not conducive to dissolving in a landfill, so you try to keep that material out of the landfills, which would include all the types of circuit boards that you find in this equipment. And then of course there's the old CRT television that contains lead. Televisions for years were made with lead to protect the actual tube from getting too hot and allowing the process of magnifying to the lens to work successfully. Those become the most costly item to recycle. Pennsylvania banned televisions from their landfills as well as the other equipment because they wanted to protect the water supply in the future. The number of recycled televisions represents somewhere around 75 to 80% of what's recycled, and it's good that we're handling those in a very environmentally conscious way. What we're trying to explain to the consumers in Pennsylvania is there's no need to throw this stuff in a landfill. There should be adequate locations around the state where they can go and drop off this equipment. If they're interested in finding out where eLoop operates, you could reference our website and you can see where we're recycling. Maybe we're recycling close to you. Beyond eLoop, there are several other companies that do this in the state of Pennsylvania. And to be environmentally conscious and help protect the water supply in Pennsylvania, we'd like you to do a good job recycling electronics.
America is a great nation where everyone is created equal, but that wasn't always the case. The sins of our country have been legal in some states. As in the past, we are a divided nation, where some states allow abortion and others do not. Abraham Lincoln once said, "A house divided cannot stand." We must stand with our founding principles and our God. Everyone is created in the image of God. Life begins at conception. All life is precious and must be protected. Take action and let's stand together. Visit prolifecambriasomerset.org.
With the price of gas, why not vacation close to home? Plan your adventures with a free 94-page PA Great Outdoors Adventure Guide. Get your copy at visitpago.com.
When a student comes to St. Francis University, they come with gifts and talents that are unique to them. It's our role to help those students become the person that they are meant to be.
With the price of gas, why not vacation close to home? Plan your adventures with a free 94-page PA Great Outdoors Adventure Guide. Get your copy at visitpago.com. Take flight with the good news on Kaleidoscope.
Hairstyles provided by Salon Visions in Westmont.
Here on Kaleidoscope, you know we love the great outdoors. The Heath Township Sportsman's Club, located in Siegel, is one of the oldest fish nurseries in the state. They spend countless volunteer hours keeping the facility running and rely on donations and fundraising events. Just feeding the fish is almost $7,000 a year. For them, it's all worth it though. The real reason they do it started in their childhood and is now passed on to the next generation. So let's go feed the fish.
Driving in here tonight, you've probably seen 4 or 5 Feed the Fish signs. That's our logo, Feed the Fish. We have a lot of signs posted, but the marketing and the local Facebook pages, it's phenomenal. how this place took off. As a child, and I still remember this, me and my brother, my dad used to drop us off here and we'd walk up this creek, Kellen Run, and fish all day. It's like everything else. You grow up, you get married, have kids, and then you sort of get away from it. I've been heavily involved probably 6 to 7 years. All the documents I've found, it started in 1935. This year's our 91st year. We've been involved with the co-op, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat. We just got a certificate for our 70 years with them. The nursery is actually called the Lewis Painter Nursery. The Heath Township Sportsman's Club runs the nursery. The land is owned by National Fuel. They donate to us to use as we need. We have approximately 7 events a year, but our biggest community give back is the Fishing Derby. Last year we had 226 kids signed up. It's always the first Saturday of May. The following day on Sunday, we have Veterans and First Responders Derby. We stock approximately 1,500 fish in 2 days. Every child that signs up, we give a gift. We usually give about 100 to 150 fishing poles away. T-shirts, medals. When they come down and help us at the nursery, we buy medals. It's a big, big thing.
Come up here when I was a kid, enjoy it. I'm good for about 5 more years, and I'll pass it on to somebody else. My job is when we get the fish in, usually July, August every year, we get between 8,000 8,500 rainbows and brown, and we raise them from then on. They're about 11 months when we get them, and we raise them till the next April and stock them. Sometimes it'll freeze up. You know, you got to slacks off on the food. Their best temperatures go between like 45 and 55 for the growing, but so it's always cold here. Sometimes we put heaters in, cover the runways up with blankets, anything to keep it from freezing. Somebody every day come in and feed. They check the little runway, the ponds, the water inlet, the intake up here. We keep track of everything that we do. Feed them different amounts, different times of the year. All depends on their metabolism, you know, the way they grow.
Pennsylvania Fish and Boat, I mean, we stock about 8,500 fish for 2 months. They'd have to probably double the size of their team to stock all the fish that they have. We're actually one of the oldest nurseries in Pennsylvania. We're not there. I think there's 2 or 3 nurseries that are a little bit longer. Nobody's out building new nurseries. So keeping them going, you know, this one for 91 years now is a pretty big deal for everybody. And a lot of our members, I'm not from here. Our board members, maybe 2 of 10 are from the area. You know, we're from Pittsburgh, we're from Lower Borough, we're from Gatanik. And a lot of these folks that do this drive up here to help and then drive home. That's how much is supported up here. I think it does a lot for the community, not only the community, but the sportsmanship of fishing. We're a big fan of kids fishing. That's really why I'm here. I'm here for the kids. Any member that you talk with, it's all about the kids. And when they stock and you give a kid a bucket of fish, he or she, and we have a lot of females, run them buckets down in the woods and come back, you can't beat the smile. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. And that's why I'm here, really. And I think you asked any member that's what they're gonna tell you. It's all about the kids and the sport of fishing. You know, with all the videos and things for kids to do nowadays, fishing is not on the top 10. We appreciate the sport of fishing, but it's all about the kids. At the end of the day. What I like to see is the mother and the dad taking their kids out of the video games and being at home and getting out in the woods. It's probably as big for me as any. Come to our nursery and feed the fish. You have a good time.
That is a lot of fish. And those couple of big ones they tossed in will make someone really happy if they get to catch them. And we are done. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Kaleidoscope. Keep up to date with Kaleidoscope on our website or join the others who have liked our Facebook page. And as I always say, for a different view of our region, look at life through our Kaleidoscope. I will see you next Sunday.